into several versions of himself as grim likenesses emerged from the fabric of his bisht and surrounded me. We shot our way out of Gold's Gym, even though we didn't need to. The bodybuilders wanted nothing to do with us. But the Arabs set the dial on total bloodshed, and we didn't leave until every muscle-bound throwback had been put down. Given the means and opportunity, they would have massacred history, too, and they did, after a fashion, murdering a look-alike of Dave Draper, who may have been Dave Draper himself, assuming we experienced some temporal violation and now inhabited history. A more plausible explanation for this place than the idea that it actually existed in the modern world, and considering Draper's influence on the bodybuilding industry, namely his posthumous deification in virtually every walk of public life. A butterfly effect would ensue and change the course of society and culture, reproducing the future as a potential site of, at the very least, jeopardy and consternation. Convinced we were about to emerge into a new world, I asked for a gun just to be sure. In thick, jagged accents, the Arabs refused, screaming for me to stay focused and execute the plan. Plan, I reiterated. Outside, everything looked the same, so much so that my escort faded into vague interstices, and when I arrived at headquarters, I felt like a new man. Perhaps the legendary bodybuilder's death had only changed me. That was enough. Solipsism is frowned upon, but in its absence, nothing exists, as everything only exists by the infinitely unique perceptions of individual subjects. I might have said that aloud. Did I just say something? I asked a makeup artist. She shook her head and made a frog face as she dotted my cheeks and neck with oil. You're a man of few words, Mr. President. There was a happy ending, after which I received a guided meditation and scanned my body for nodes of anxiety. There are only nodes, I deduced, nothing less, no absence. The makeup artist said, let's try again. We did better the second time, and I resented dispatching the makeup artist for a moment, despite the pleasure I took in the texture of her skin flesh on my thumbs, the sound of her frail neck bone cracking like an icicle. The killing incited a mnemonic tempest. I couldn't be sure if what I saw on my mind screen belonged to me. None of it looked familiar. To my knowledge, I had never killed anybody before, although, like any aspiring man of the crowd, I had been working out for years. Sometime later, staring at the teleprompter, I waited for the countdown and smoothed out coagulations of fish oil on my arms and chest. Long ago, I had concluded that fish oil worked just as well inside the body as it did on the surface. It was as if the substance possessed a magnetic quality that lifted the veins into the air. Of course, no such quality existed. Aided by a bit of shine, my vascularity spoke for itself. A grip dealt me the cue with remote fingers. 3, 2, 1. The bulb atop the camera turned green and digitized my image in high-def monochrome, the format kindest to the nuances of the flesh. Peripherally, I saw myself on a makeshift IMAX screen in the corner of the studio. I tried to ignore it. Contracting my pectoral and abdominal muscles, I read from the teleprompter in a steady, confident, masculine, articulate, yet colloquial and casual tone. Not too white, not too bourgeois, and occasionally I employed a vague lilt indicating that behind closed doors I might not be afraid to express my emotional, essentially feminine core. My fellow... What's the word? Well, here we stand on the precipice of atrocity. I don't want to remake the country. I want to re-establish its nuclear principles. For instance, I enjoy long walks down aluminum hallways. Additionally, I enjoy skiing in Colorado and organizing women into accordion folders. Sometimes I enjoy being swept away by the absurd delirium of a pop song. I have many memories. One of them involves childhood. I can't be sure, but I may have bludgeoned the next-door neighbors with a hoe and buried the entire family in my father's garden. Nobody said anything about their disappearance. Years later, I became a teenager. The garden determined to see things grow if I concentrated hard enough. I have many flaws, but my work ethic is truly cosmic. And as we all know, a cosmic work ethic is essential to the process of identity construction in this country. One day I noticed a bone sticking out of the soil. On the end of it was a shoe. Everybody else, nobody said anything. I grew up, and here I stand before you today. That's everything. One must always be honest, even at the expense of feelings and blood ties. Like everybody, I think about a lot of things, but mostly my thoughts are preoccupied with groceries and guns. Where to get a good gun, where to find the bargain prices, so forth. That's honesty. All presidents commit crimes. Some of us get caught, and some don't. Getting caught. More on powerful, almost hypnotic crowd stare. I silenced the standing ovation before it had a chance to gain momentum, then went on a minor killing spree without weapons, since I couldn't seem to get my hands on anything, and I really wanted my .357 Colt Python, but I didn't remember what happened to it, nor, as it so happened, did I remember my name. Confronted by this theoretical maelstrom, the president lifted an empty protein shake container and inspected it. A bead of liquid flowed from the rim. The president wiped it away with a handkerchief, and the bead came back from nowhere. "The container bleeds," he said gravely. He set it on the desk. "Get my personal trainer, now!" The First Lady entered the room. "Who are you?" roared the president. She wore a sharp, starched business coat and skirt. Her eyes peered at him from 2 oil pits of mascara. She said, "Take your clothes off," but he parried the directive and thrust the conversation in a new direction. Soon they were talking about idle trivia. "Do you remember when you were young, before the eclipse of corporeality?" she said. "Sometimes," replied the president. "Let me refresh your memory." "Please don't." "All right," said the First Lady. "Remember when we used to lie in the sun and fuck like bacon whores? I don't think I cared about anything so much as your Johnson back then." She paused, made herself a cosmopolitan on a machine-age cocktail stand as the president reclined in a leather Arlington and surfed through a tolerable selection of channels, blue television light flickering in his eyes. "If only you had cared so much about my privates," she said, "things might have turned out differently. But really it comes down to your first kill, nothing compared to it. That feeling. Naturally your efforts to reclaim it have been futile. How will your chronic failures be inscribed in the history of your selfhood? I don't know the answer to this question. For now, we can only hope for the best and see this term to the end." "I've never killed anybody," remarked the president. He found a good channel, put aside the remote, and administered an HGH injection between his knuckles with the ease and informality of lighting a cigarette. The First Lady shotgunned a Cosmo from a martini glass. "Disgusting," she bleated. She made another one, drank it slower, and said, "I never liked alcohol. I swear I drink it out of habit or something. It's just something I do." That night, functionally intoxicated, she tucked the president into bed, per usual, and ran fingers down his face, down the forehead, down the nose, down the cheeks and the long, febrile chin, until the contours that defined his body seeped into the mattress and slithered into history. The end.